Good morning. It's Adele Anderson from Destiny Getaways and fulfillyourdestiny.ca. And I saw this morning on Facebook that somebody that I know is having confusion about their young teenager that's no longer conforming to the group. And I want to blog about psychological evolution and the natural evolution of our brain as we grow up, as we deal with our personal mastery, which is the first 3 levels of psychological evolution, and moving into 2 more phases, that relate more to our internal sense of soul awakening. So our higher purpose in life, which we start to get into when we're in our 50s and our 60s. But what I want to talk about today is the first 3 levels, and that involves your teenagers and why they do the things that they do. And I hope that you find it interesting. So I'm just going to step away from the camera, allow you to see the view. We are on the beautiful Sunshine Coast, the west coast of British Columbia, and Mother Nature is all around us, and that's really important for all of our psyches. But anyway, here we go. I will just step away from the camera. So we need to understand that there's actually several layers of psychological development that we naturally are drawn towards. And it's a natural process of us growing as human beings. And these levels of development represent both the needs of the ego and of the soul. And they motivate all of our human behavior, whether it has to do with relationships, activities, job, work, love, play. So everything about us is motivated by the developmental stages that we're in and how we successfully master them. So as a therapist, I recognize that a human condition is self-esteem. So today's talk is pretty cool because it is the 3rd stage of personal mastery is where your teenagers are starting to find out their sense of self, and that really is about developing their sense of self-esteem. And since many of us suffer from issues with our self-esteem, this could be an awakening of where the root of that feeling comes from. So when we have a strong sense of self-esteem, we actually feel a sense of inner peace. And we know that we're grounded in our ability to make the right choices in our lives. And there's a few issues that I'll talk about, core values, in another session. But let's talk about the first 3 levels that represent our personal mastery. And so when we're born, we obviously are completely dependent on our parents or some sort of caregiver. Someone needs to keep us warm, put us to bed, feed us, and make sure that we're clean. So this is naturally the part of our psychological evolution when we're in survival mentality. And it's the very first stage of our development. And this psychology takes place in our reptilian brain, which is the oldest brain for humanity, but for most creatures that have a reptilian brain. And it's about survival. So it's about learning to stay alive and create a safe and secure environment so that we do survive. So the reason why babies cry, they know that if they cry, someone's going to come and pick them up and cuddle them if they feel lonely or they feel, afraid. If they're hungry, they cry so that they get fed, so they get the nourishment that they need. So this is the idea of survival mentality. And in this particular example, it is a healthy way of survival mentality. Where we see it as adults is when we are in stress. So stress triggers the reptilian brain to take us out of our neo-cortex and into our reptilian brain, which means we have no ability to rationalize. And there's a bunch of other stuff that happens. But that's that fight or flight mode that you've heard about so often. And it's also a chronic state that can really affect our health. If you listened to my talk yesterday and I talked about the chemical flush that happens when we're in a certain state of mind, when our thoughts take us to this place, this is also represented through emotion. So when we have an emotion that's attached to a feeling of insecurity for our safety and survival, so it could mean the loss of a job, it could mean the loss of a relationship where our stability is a bit shaken. And so we naturally go back into this safety and security brain, which limits our ability to think clearly. So when we have a fight with our lover or our partner and we freeze and we don't find the words that we need to express ourselves properly, it's because we're not in our neocortex. We're in our reptilian brain and we're in survival mentality. So if that clarifies a few things. Babies are in this until about the age of 2. And then they move into the second level of psychological development, which is relationships. And this lasts through till about they're like a 12-year-old, a tweenie. And this stage of development represents that they're conforming to the family and to your wishes because it makes them feel like they belong. And this provides them with the safety and security they need to stay out of survival mode. So they become very loyal to the people that keep them safe. So that's why a little child wants to do everything for you. You ask them, can you go get this for me? And they're like, of course I will. They run off and do their little thing because they're completely loyal to you, because they understand within this phase that if they show loyalty, that they will belong to the tribe. And by belonging to the tribe, they feel loved and accepted within the group. So this would include family, friends, church, other siblings, that all make them feel like they belong. And this gives them a sense of well-being, a sense of inclusion that we need as human beings, because we actually are herd animals. We don't do well in isolation. So as they become very comfortable and they feel safe and secure, they can move into the next level, which is really cool. So when they do this, they become a little bit more independent. And this feels like a pulling away from the parents, a pulling away from the tribe. And you may begin to experience that they're pushing their boundaries and they're separating from the group or the tribe and becoming more independent. And this doesn't really feel good for moms and dads, and you feel like they're rebelling against everything that you ask them to do. They no longer want to go on family vacations or go to grandma's for dinner because they're looking for their independence. And it's absolutely natural, part of their psychological evolution that begins when they're young teenagers, or maybe a little bit sooner if they felt very safe and secure and very loved and belonging in their tribe. Then good for you, because they were able to develop faster than the norm. So that's pretty cool. So in this stage of differentiation, they are looking to satisfy what makes them feel good inside, what makes them feel good about themselves. They begin to manage their own lives and make choices for themselves. And this is where they begin to find their own strengths and weaknesses. And they want to be rewarded. They want to be rewarded and have pride in their accomplishments. So it's really important to recognize them and give them the accolades that they need in order to satisfy this part of their development. This is where they master their self-esteem. And as we recognize a human condition where quite often our self-esteem is fragile, you can encourage your child to have a stronger sense of self-esteem by encouraging their independence, of course, in a safe way. And how we do that in a safe way is we make sure that we install and that they know their core values. So the core values are like the foundation of your home. Hopefully, whether or not it's a very big earthquake or not, you always feel stable because the foundation of your home is set deep, deep within the earth. So unfortunately, less than 1% of the world's population have ever done their core values. So without knowing this, you are not necessarily aware or have a strong and clear sense of what your core values are. And why is that important? Where core values are your non-negotiables. It's like you either are or you're not. So if you develop a sense of family's important, then that could be a core value. But what if your sense of integrity overrides your sense of family? So how would that work? For myself, I would say, yes, my family is extremely important to me, but my integrity is unshakable, and that also represents how I interact with my family with a sense of integrity. So therefore, my sense of integrity for a core value is closer to my core than my, the label of being secure with family. So it's quite an interesting process, and it really makes you consider what is your non-negotiable list. So it could be, compassion or empathy or, love or nurturing, whatever those might be. But I'm happy to discuss it with you personally. But why is it important? Well, when we are moving through differentiation, when our teenagers are scooting away from you, or you're feeling a sense of isolation from them and wondering if you're still influencing them, you can understand that their core values give them stability. And it also provides all of us with our sense of happiness. So when we live by our core values, we have a true sense of long-lasting happiness. So that is one of the biggest takeaways for today, is that the core values that you have lead you towards your true purpose. And by doing that, you make choices within your life that always find alignment with your core values. And then living in alignment with your core values mean that you experience a sense of happiness. So you don't choose a job that doesn't line up with your ethical standards. You don't choose a job that doesn't bring you passion towards a higher purpose. It's not just about gaining wealth, although wealth could be a core value, but you need to understand why wealth is a core value. Do you want to be wealthy so you can then offer your family things? So you have to understand the underlying reason behind what you are driven by. Anyway, core values is something that stabilizes us. So if you notice that you waver, if you notice that you're not feeling fulfilled, if you notice that you want to buy a lot of stuff, stuff is a temporary way of making us feel a sense of satisfaction. But I call it consumable happiness because it doesn't last for long. And then this underlying internal sense of dissatisfaction returns. So getting back to our psychological evolution, when you want your teenagers to, feel strong, and yourself to also feel strong within their phase of evolution, which is involving separating from the family, then move to core values. Move to the core values that are the foundation of your home, and find out what those are, and then watch your child move through their lives and through their world within a sense that they're grounded in the core values. And that will give you a sense of calm. At least I hope it will. Anyway, it's a bigger topic to be discussed. I'm fascinated by not only psychological evolution, but core values being such a fundamental part of our human need to satisfy ourselves internally and live a happy life. I'd like to have a longer conversation with you, but until that happens, please enjoy this beautiful day. Take a look at the water for a few more minutes, and then I'll sign off for the day. And thank you for tuning in.